When a leader speaks for 1 hour and 48 minutes and still loses trust on the very issue he speaks about most, something fundamental has shifted in American politics. When the longest speech in modern history becomes evidence of the disconnect rather than connection with voters, we're witnessing a turning point. My name is Eleanor Grant, and I am a journalist. This is just my point of view that I am presenting. It may be wrong, but it is my own perspective. I want you to share your point of view in the comments as well. On February 24th, 2026, President Trump delivered the longest State of the Union address in modern American history. 1 hour and 48 minutes, 108 minutes of continuous speaking, breaking Bill Clinton's 26-year record by 20 minutes. Nearly 10,000 words. Yet the most revealing number wasn't the speech's length. It was what the American public said afterward. According to multiple polls released immediately after the address, only 38% of viewers gave the speech a very positive rating. More concerning for the White House, 45% of viewers, including many Republicans, said Trump gave too little attention to the economy and cost of living. This is the issue 57% of Americans wanted him to address above all others. The timing of this speech matters deeply. Trump entered that chamber with his approval rating among independents at a record low of 26%. His overall approval stood at 36 to 39% across major polls. For the first time in his political career, Americans distrust him more than they trust him on economic management. The speech's structure revealed the administration's internal tension. Trump spent the first hour celebrating economic victories, citing stock market records, falling egg prices, and employment numbers. He declared America had achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before. He spoke of a golden age. Republicans stood and applauded repeatedly. Democrats sat in stony silence. Some did more than sit. Representative Al Green was escorted from the chamber after holding up a sign reading, "Black people aren't apes," referencing content Trump had recently shared on social media. Representatives Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib shouted at Trump during his immigration remarks. The chamber became a physical manifestation of America's division. Then the speech shifted. About 1 hour in, Trump turned combative. He pointed at Democrats and called them crazy. He blamed them for inflation, for healthcare costs, for affordability issues. He said they suddenly started using the word affordability because somebody gave it to them. He gestured toward the Democratic side and said, "You caused that problem." This is where political strategy meets political reality. Trump's team knows the midterm elections are 9 months away. They know Republicans could lose their House majority if current trends continue. Historical data shows that when a president's economic approval is negative, his party loses an average of 28 House seats in midterms. When it's positive, they lose only 9 seats. Trump currently has a net negative 20 on economic approval, slightly worse than Biden at the same point in his presidency. Let that settle in. The president who built his political brand on economic competence now polls worse on the economy than the president he defeated, partly because of economic concerns. The speech included 6 medal ceremonies. West Virginia National Guardsman Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf received the Purple Heart for being shot during Trump's deployment of the Guard to Washington. The Olympic gold medal-winning men's hockey team appeared and received bipartisan applause. These moments humanized the address. They provided emotional weight, but they also extended the speech's length, raising questions about strategic purpose. Was this about honoring service? Or was it about filling airtime to demonstrate strength and stamina? When a president warns beforehand that the speech will be long because there's so much to talk about, then spends significant time on ceremonies rather than policy substance, voters notice the gap. The Democratic response came from Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger. She did not mince words. "We did not hear the truth from our president," she said. She asked 3 direct questions. Is the president working to make life more affordable? Is he working to keep Americans safe? Is he working for you? And she answered with specifics about tariffs costing families $1,700, about healthcare clinics closing after Trump's budget cuts, about rising costs contradicting the president's golden age narrative. This is classic midterm positioning. Democrats are embracing the language of economic pain. They're saying, we feel what you're feeling, while Trump says, look at these great numbers. In politics, perception often defeats data. If families feel worse off despite positive economic statistics, they vote based on what they feel, not what experts tell them to feel. The speech contained multiple fact-check challenges. Trump claimed egg prices dropped 60%. This is accurate from peak prices in March 2025. But he also claimed butter, fruit, chicken, and rent are lower than when he took office. Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows these prices remained largely flat, not decreased. He claimed eliminating government fraud could balance the budget overnight. The actual numbers show fraud accounts for at most $521 billion. The deficit is $1.8 trillion. He stated that 2.4 million Americans came off food stamps, calling it a record. Congressional Budget Office data reveals these were primarily people who lost benefits due to expanded work requirements in Trump's budget bill, not people who no longer needed assistance because of economic improvement. These discrepancies matter because credibility compounds over time. When a president makes verifiable false claims in the nation's most watched annual speech, it erodes trust, not just in that moment, but in future statements. This is particularly dangerous when asking Americans to trust that economic pain will ease soon, that affordability will improve, that the golden age is real and not rhetorical. The political calculation behind this speech becomes clearer when examining what Trump emphasized versus what voters wanted to hear. He spent considerable time on immigration enforcement, on foreign policy, on cultural issues like transgender policies. Immigration is Trump's strongest approval area. 62% approve of his immigration strategies, according to some polls. But only a fraction of voters listed immigration as their top concern compared to the economy. This reveals the central challenge facing Trump and congressional Republicans. They're governing based on their strongest issues, rather than addressing voters' primary concerns. This works when your base is energized and turns out. It fails when independents and persuadable voters feel ignored on the issues affecting their daily lives. The length of the speech itself became a story, and perhaps that was intentional. Trump holds records for longest speeches across multiple categories. His 2019 Conservative Political Action Conference speech ran 2 hours and 2 minutes. His 2024 Republican National Convention acceptance speech lasted 93 minutes, breaking his own 2016 record. Length signals stamina, dominance, control of the room. It says, I have so much to tell you that time limits don't apply to me. But there's a risk calculation here. Every additional minute on stage is another minute to make mistakes, to appear combative, to give opponents footage for negative ads. It's another minute where viewers might tune out, check their phones, or form impressions based on demeanor rather than content. When CNN polling shows that even among a Republican-heavy audience of speech watchers, only 38% were very positive, the length may have worked against the president's goals. The midterm implications extend beyond Trump's personal approval. Senate races and House competitions will be fought on local issues, but against this national backdrop. Democratic candidates will tie Republicans to Trump's economic record. They'll use footage of Trump calling prices affordable while families struggle with grocery bills. They'll highlight the disconnect between golden age rhetoric and kitchen table reality. Republican candidates face a choice: embrace Trump fully and hope his base turns out in sufficient numbers, or create distance and risk alienating the very voters who gave them their current majorities. What Americans witnessed on February 24th was not simply a long speech. It was a crystallization of where American politics stands in early 2026. A president convinced of his achievements, speaking to a nation largely unconvinced. A chamber divided not just by party, but by fundamental perceptions of reality. A Republican Party trying to hold power while defending an economic record that voters increasingly reject. A Democratic Party smelling opportunity, but unsure if opposition alone constitutes a governing vision. The speech's reception reveals something deeper about democratic accountability. In a functioning democracy, leaders adjust to public sentiment. They read warning signs in polling, in town halls, in the voices of citizens. They recalibrate strategies when current approaches prove ineffective. The question before us is whether this administration will interpret the post-speech polling as a mandate to change course on economic messaging, or as evidence that they simply need to speak louder and longer to convince Americans of what they should already see. Here is what citizens must understand as we move toward November's midterms. Presidential power is ultimately constrained not by opponents, but by credibility. A leader can make the longest speech in history, can cite impressive statistics, can declare golden ages. But if the American people's lived experience contradicts the narrative, no amount of speaking will close that gap. The true measure of leadership isn't speech length or applause lines. It's whether the leader can accurately diagnose the nation's condition and offer solutions that work in practice, not just in rhetoric. When a president loses the public's trust on the very issues he claims as greatest achievements, we must ask ourselves whether we're being led or simply being told we're being led. That distinction matters more than any speech, however long, can obscure.